Springtime is almost here. It's the Hebrew month of Adar. You know, the month where we celebrate Purim? And it's the time where we commemorate Esther and how she stood in the gap, and she had that moment where she said, if I perish, I perish. I am going to help my people. And here we are today, thousands of years later, celebrating her life. And you know what? There are many who, like her, are standing in the gap for Israel, and we can't wait to introduce you in this unique series to these women. And they're from all walks of life, and we want you to meet them and hear their stories. And you know what, friends? Bring all the hostages home, and we stand with those who are victorious. Hila, thank you so much for inviting us into your home. And some people know you and have met you and know your story about how your own brother was murdered in the Supernova Festival in Re'im in the south by militant jihadists. And I noticed that our country was really brought together at that moment to just give food. As a soldier, a sergeant major, we're going down the road in our Hummers or our transports, and people say, take this food just to give you enough strength to get through another time in Gaza and Lebanon. But I wanted to ask you, it's the time of International Women's Day, Esther, these are great heroic women. We think you're very brave and you're a heroic woman. Not just because you went through what you went through, but you had a moment where you decided, I want to be like Esther. I want to do something. I want to be involved. Was there a moment like that that you can think of where you just said, do or die, you know, for my people?
I think since I was a kid, I had it in me, you know, that I'm going to fight till the end for what I think is right. And when Lotan left this world, I just felt that I have no options anymore. I mean, Israel before October 7th was in its worst shape ever. The society divided. I think divided, but it was sad, you know. And after October 7th, and when, as I said, Lotan left this world, I just knew I have no options anymore. If I want Israel to exist and to rebuild and also the society of Israel, I have to take an action. I can't allow myself to sit on the bench and that's it. I mean, that was the moment. I think I knew it since the beginning.
I love how Mordecai, in the story of Esther, he goes to her and he challenges her and he says, hey, maybe this whole, you know, we're in Iran, we're in ancient Persia, but maybe you came to this place you're being also elevated and more people know about you. And maybe you came to this place for such a time as this, as Zman Hazeh, because it was the time of the anti-Semitism was also so strong that we were almost completely wiped out, annihilated by anti-Semitism in ancient Persia.
Continuing like in Persia and then Germany and now the world.
Who would have thought in this time and day and age a Jewish woman would have to come and say, my brother was murdered? I mean, it doesn't make sense. At his home. And
it's crazy. I still don't believe that, you know, I can't believe that.
And he lived there. He was trying to do like peace. Even that festival was like about trying to bring peace and it's true. Now I know that on the 13th of the month of Adar, 13th of this Hebrew month, there was a plot to kill all the Jewish people. There was another plot before that Mordecai found out about. And sometimes in life we realize that there is forces at work behind the scenes that are trying to push one thing or another thing. And we know what happened in the end to Haman in the end. But I just wanted to ask you this. Women are so different than men in many ways. When I think we must fight the enemy, I think, where's my gun? And let's check if everything's ready and the diesel is in the engine, you know. But what did Esther do? She said, will you come to a supper, a banquet, with even her enemy there? I don't think I would ever think of that. Come to a banquet, and not just one, two, and hey, let's discuss this. I mean, what do you think about this?
You know, it's hard because at the beginning, I thought my dream is to discuss about things and try to get even and work together, you know. As time goes by, I think it's deeper than that. We need to change the way we think. We need to change all our DNA, you know, to make it better. And it's not, there's a reason why October 7th happened. I mean, maybe it's a sign that we need to change our ways. You know, I think there's a reason for that. We are in the Messiah days, you know, and we need, and we need to really think. I mean, how can each individual in the Jewish society, you know what? No, in the world, can change his behave and its behaves and the way he wakes up in the morning and see the world. To change the society around him, and then, you know, it's like waves.
You know,
it's an utopic thing to say. An utopic thing to think that we can change it in a second, you know. But we need to work. It's education and the willing to sit and talk to each other and not to fight with each other, and to really listen to what we have to say to each other, and maybe we can open our mind and to another idea.
Yes, there's always dynamics. They're Arabic, they are from Iran, they're from Israel. They are Christians, evangelicals, they are Jews. And within Israel, we have our own dynamics in our country too. There's the Druze, there's the Bedouins, there's the
Jewish.
And even amongst the Jewish, they are secular, they are religious. They are from this party, they're from that party. And the enemy sees it, I think, and the enemy wants the enemy of Israel wants there to be no people, no Am Yisrael Chai. They don't want Am, and they don't want Yisrael, and they don't want Chai.
When we're divided, I mean, the world sees that, and that's our biggest problem, you know. Yesterday, I heard Nate saying that.
Who's this guy? Oh, Nate
Buzolik, yes. And he said, the Knesset, that the world see the Hamas, the Gazan people united under the Hamas, and they see us divided. So, I mean, we're losing already by being divided, you know, and that kills all our asbara.
Yeah, our advocacy for Israel. One thing that I love about Esther's moment, she for sure was afraid. For sure was, because she would have been killed by this king, and she could have been killed, but she chose anyway. You know, if I perish, I perish. I'm going to speak out before the king, even if I perish, I perish. And I noticed that you're like that too, to say, hey, this is our land, this is our people. If I perish, I perish. And then what happens is, from that moment, things start to change. We always think nothing can change. Everything
can change as long as we do something about it, you know. And I'm not afraid of anything right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
I lost everything, so I'm not afraid of anything anymore. And I just don't want other people feel like me, and I don't want October 7th to happen again. So I'll do everything and anything I can to prevent the next October 7th. And I don't care about what people are saying about me, or you know, haters. Haters, or how people treat us at the Knesset. I just we need to prevent that. The most important thing is to bring back all the hostages alive. And the second one after that, when we'll bring them all back, and we can rebuild Israel, we need to think and how we prevent the next October 7th, because it's waiting for us just around the corner. And that's my biggest
it's true. Do you feel,
right now.
I know that 2.2 billion people in this world are hold some anti-Semitic thoughts and misconceptions about Israel, and that's almost half. That's like I think 46% of all the adults, grown adults, almost half of all the adults hold anti-Israel perspective. And I know they're looking for cracks. They're looking for ways to attack. We've seen that in a 7-front war, and I've seen it also in the different places I've been. But how do you think what can we do to prevent on October 7th? What can we do to do?
Further, I mean, there's two things. There's preventing October 7th, and there's fighting anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. For anti-Semitism, it's like just light more, bring more light to the table, and mm-hmm. the darkness will disappear. Mm-hmm. So about anti-Semitism around the world, just be light, be a light. Light fights darkness, and that's the only thing I can see, because we need to show people who we are exactly, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's about love and light, and when you spread love and you come as a light, right. People see that and they might change their ways. They might. Yeah. And about the next October 7th, I mean, that's our government, army, and special units to prevent. First of all, they need to start a state commission of inquiry to realize what happened and to investigate what happened and how right. the hell, mm-hmm. for years before October 7th, mm-hmm. Our intelligence was so right. Reading the situation here. And then to get the conclusions and change our ways.
Right, and that's exactly what Esther did, is she was able to enact, and Mordecai, he became like the right hand, like the prime minister. Mordecai was able to then put in policies. Yeah. I see how that is something very important to put in, to change our ways and put in policies that are correct, which will help the future. And it was a time of peace for a long, long time, until you have Nehemiah with the cup, and he was Artaxerxes' son. So Artaxerxes, and then you had Xerxes and Artaxerxes. So Artaxerxes is the ruler of Persia, who commissioned Nehemiah and Ezra and Nehemiah to come and build this land and everything. So it can be a time of peace, but I think we need victory, not only in Gaza and Lebanon and Syria and Judea and Samaria and in Yemen, but there's even a victory. The
victory inside Israel will bring the victory outside Israel.
Aha.
That's it.
Interesting.
The victory, like us being living together and being united, and I mean, that's the victory. And then all the outside will disappear.
Yeah, I see how Nate Buzz, your good friend, I hope one day we'll be good friends too, is that
I spend the day with him.
Yeah, but it's like amazing how he just says, look, love will conquer hate, light will dispel the darkness. And in the story of Esther, at the very, very end, even though we don't see the name of God written anywhere, but we see that things are all moving together, because this is Hanetzach. Eternal people will never be defeated unless we defeat ourselves.
That's the point of everything, I think. I mean, as I said, we need to wake up in the morning and think, how can we be better today? Mm-hmm. Each day to be better than the day before. Mm-hmm. And that will bring the light inside Israel and the victory inside Israel and the achdut that we're all talking about, but we don't really practice it. We're talking about achdut, and you hear achdut as like everywhere, but unity, we don't really, unity. But nobody really practice that. Mm-hmm. It's mm-hmm. just another word, and no, we need to live by that. To wake up in the morning and say, what can I do today?
Right.
To bring more unity, more achdut to Israel, to my family, to my moshav, to my city, to my neighbors.
Right, and it means being firm, being tough, being strong, not being a pushover, but still with love. Can you tell me, if I can ask, a memory of Lotan that you saw him doing that, bringing people together?
Of course, that was the essence of Lotan Abir. But before that, and you know what? It's connected to Lotan. There's a sentence in Israel like, Achdut is not Achidut.
Right. That's very beautiful. Unity is not uniformity. Exactly. Unity is not uniform. Uniform, you have the same uniform in the army.
We not have
you look
to
alike,
be the same.
But you are different but unified. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that if we want unity, we have to be the same people. No,
right.
Or think the same thoughts. Mm-hmm. No, we just need to live together and to respect each other. Mm-hmm. There's no respect anymore. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Lotan brought people together. He used to collect them on the beach or on his trips, and bring them to the moshav and sit with his childhood friends, and they all knew each other because of him. People he met in Colombia and on the streets of Tel Aviv. He just brought everyone together, and you know, there's some couples made out of these connections.
Okay, they hung out and fell in love.
And that was Lotan. He was a big light. He is a big light still.
If the enemies of Israel could only recognize that whenever they're attacking, it's not working, because if anything, we're just going to be more together. If we could be more together, we'll have the full victory. The last thing is,
together.
Yeah, even thousands of years later, we're talking about Esther. Thousands of years, and it's the International Women's Day. And so there's women all around the world, and I'd love if you might have a word to say to someone who's, whether they're Jewish, whether they're Christian, whether they're Israeli, whether they're from any nation in the world. Okay, they all have a journey like Esther to choose to stand on what you believe in, speak what is the truth, and not be afraid. And
not be afraid. That's the essence of it all, because Lotan taught me that fear is ego, and when you break the fear, there's no ego, and then you have an open heart. Mm-hmm. And that's the point of it all. I mean, it's all about energy of love. What's mm-hmm. God? It's an energy of creation, mm-hmm. of life, of love, and when you have an open heart, so all the love around you can enter, there's space for it. And
right.
So fear is ego, just break the fear. Mm-hmm. And really, it's so easy, because, okay, let's take, for example, I don't know, a political side of a story.
Okay.
They're afraid of a new government, of a change, of whatever. Right. When you break it, when you understand that a change might be good, or mm-hmm. maybe it's not the lies that people tell you, or or you read in the newspapers. If you break it, there's no ego. You're not afraid anymore, right. And then you have an open heart for a change, for other people, other thoughts, and that's it. That's the point of it all.
And your name, Hila, it means like a halo, right? Like around the moon.
Halo, yeah.
And you see around the moon, there's like
Beyonce wrote a song about me. No.
Yeah, and that's the glowing and shining a light. Last thing I was going to say is, do you know that when this change happened, even the whole country of Iran today has still the same choice, which is kind of crazy. They could choose to be friend with Israel, or they could choose to be like Haman. They can choose to what to do. And it seems like some of them, not all the people, but some of them are choosing, hey, we wish we could. I understand they have enough for maybe 8 or 10 nuclear weapons right now. And they could. Some would love to use that, and they would love, whereas others would say never.
Yeah.
And so, do you think that behind the scenes, the lots, the Purim, the lots were cast, and it was they for the 13th of Adar to destroy us, but guess what? In the end, the actual Purim, the destiny of Israel, is that we will never be destroyed. And aren't you afraid to stay in Israel? Would you not want to leave?
I can't. Lotan is here.
Your brother Lotan.
Yeah, Lotan is here. we as a family can go anywhere. We have a foreign passport, and as I said, Lotan and my other brother used to live in the States for a while, for 2 years, but Lotan is here. I can't leave him anymore. Like, where would I go?
Yeah.
This is my country. I was born here in this beautiful place. I'm a nature girl, and Lotan is just here. And no, never. This is no. I can't.
Any word to the people watching that is an encouragement in their journey as Esther's, maybe Mordecai's, growing up to what their destiny?
Live life with no fear. That's it. Live life with no fear. Break the fear. And what's the worst can happen?
Amazing.
So simple. Yeah.
Thank you for opening up your heart and your house to us, and we are with you.
But also advocating for the Jewish nation around the world, talking with prime ministers and parliament members and communities around the world. I would say that that's my mission for a greater cause for our people and for every community in the world. I would say that being a Jew overseas today, Israelis, we look at the Jews overseas and we feel sorry for them because they're having such a tough time living with the anti-Semitism that is rising around them. There is not one Jew that can live peacefully today. I think either they need to hide their identity or they have to take a stand, and it's a debate, and sometimes it's life-threatening. So actually being here in Israel, where we have our own country, our own state, our own government, our own police, our own army, we feel safe. I feel safe. I can walk around and nobody's going to ask me all these questions all the time, and I don't have to advocate why I'm doing this and why I think that and why Hamas did this and why. I can breathe, I can live, I live a totally normal life. My kids today are having Purim preparations in school. They're living their life every day in peace and harmony. Of course, we're going through a difficult time, but we are very, very confident in our righteousness, if you say that, I don't know the word. That we are very sure of our way, the Jewish way, the Israeli way. We believe in the IDF and what they're doing. And I would say, why not make Aliyah? This is the place to be. I know that we do need the Jewish communities, the strong Jewish communities around the world, because we get a lot of support, and that is, of course, very important. But if you feel not safe in your surroundings, Israel is welcoming, and this is the time to come. And there's actually a lot of aliyah going on right now. A lot of people from European communities are coming, and I think people will realize that living in Israel is very liberating. You actually feel the freedom here, being proud to be Jewish in your own country. Welcome.
I grew up in a home where my father just had such a love for the Jewish people, and he got involved with the International Christian Embassy for many years, which I can talk about later. And I automatically developed a real love for the Jewish people as well, and just a heart for this work. And in 2014, I had started a little organization called Am Israel Chai, to stand with the people of Israel, just to advocate where I could and to make a difference where I could. And in 2014, you'll probably remember, there was a Gaza war, similar to what is happening today, but on a much smaller scale. And I felt God really speaking to me and saying, will I take out a full-page ad in the national newspaper in South Africa in defense of Israel? let me say, Israel was losing the war in the media. It was really not doing well. And I can also just mention that a little bit before that, I had prayed this prayer and I said, Lord, let me make a difference that is way out of proportion to who I am. And so that's kind of the background. And this war happened. It wasn't looking good. And I really felt God say to me, take out a full-page ad in the Sunday Times, which is our national newspaper in South Africa, in defense of Israel. And it was way too big for me. I'd never done anything like this. I didn't have the money for something like this. It cost in 2014, which is now more than 10 years ago, R500,000 in South African terms, which is about 100,000 shekels, which is a lot of money 15 years ago. And I just kind of thought, okay, this is too big for me, and I shelved it. And 2 weeks later, somebody came to me who didn't know that God had spoken to me and asked me to do this and said to me, I have one question for you. Don't you want to take out a full-page advert in the Sunday Times, our national newspaper in South Africa, in defense of Israel? And then I knew God was speaking to me. And I went and I sat at my desk that evening and I said, God, I fear you more and not being obedient to you rather than this big job. And I sent an email to a few people, and by the next day, I had people starting to donate. And for me, it was like a picture of Nehemiah. I felt we needed to build a wall of truth around Israel. The wall was crumbling. It was broken in places. Israel was vulnerable to the media. And so I said to people, look, if you want to put a little stone in the wall or a big stone in the wall, let's build this wall of truth around Israel. And I actually had a date that I believe we needed to do it by the end of that month. I think it was the end of July 2014. And that was 11 days later. And I'm not going to go into all the detail, but God did this work. And I was just obedient. I was just willing to be there, to trust him, and to obey God, despite not knowing how this would work or having any sense that this was something I could do. And within 11 days, we had the advert fully paid for, placed in our national newspaper in defense of Israel. And it had such an impact. I had Jewish people around the world contact me and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Nobody has ever done this for us. We see, I put all the facts out there, the history of Israel, the difference between Hamas and even our ANC, the tunnels, what was happening. Everything was really very, very much still relevant today to the war. In fact, I still give out copies of that advert today to inform people about the reality on the ground and the truth around the Gaza war, because it hasn't changed much from 2014. The facts are still the same around Hamas and around Israel. So that was really where I believe God really used that to thrust me into this place of Israel advocacy. And yeah, I encourage women, just be obedient. If God speaks to you, it's not about you. It's just about you being obedient to doing what God has called you to do. And he will bring it together. And he did. So I think that is maybe one for me. Absolutely. I mean, I think you're continuously in speaking to the Lord, but when he brings us across your path and you react in a sense to be obedient and to say, God, this is you speaking to me. I know it's you speaking to me. It seems impossible to me. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to trust you. And there were many miracles along the way. I mean, this particular newspaper in South Africa and the guy that I spoke to do this article was, a Muslim and not very pro-Israel. And God still orchestrated it that it was a miracle, and I don't have the time to explain it, but God did miracles that in those few days. And it was, I believe, just trusting him. I actually have a saying that I speak about called tenaciously trust God. In other words, if you know that you've heard from him, if you know that he's given you an instruction and it's clear, it's not your own idea, this is something that God has spoken very clearly to you, then don't give up. In other words, and don't look at what's happening around you, which looks impossible in the natural. Because God is bigger than that. He's supernatural. He's higher than that. And so he's able to orchestrate things. And I mean, the funds all came in within 11 days. The advert was placed. And the amazing thing is also that if we had waited a week later, which I considered doing, because the money was still not all in time, the war would have been over. So I needed to be obedient to what God had told me to do, the timing of it, the detail of it, for the advert to have been relevant. And it had a big impact in South Africa. And as I say, we still use it today. Continuously, but that was just such a beautiful picture of it not being me, just being a channel of God.
do you have did you have a Mordecai in your life who's someone who, in a way, spoke into your life and is like, hey, he said, if you don't, for such a time as this, you are brought before the king to save your people, and if you don't do it, God will raise up someone else, and stuff. Was there someone like that you can think of that maybe helped in a Mordecai type way?
Yeah, I have mentors, but probably the best one is my husband, Mark. He's just like a Mordecai. He's stable, he's solid, he loves God, and he's there to support and there to encourage. And, obviously, when the 7th of October happened, we were actually in Israel at that time with a group, and my life changed that day. And I came back to South Africa after that, and I realized we needed to do something. And Mark really encouraged me as well. And on the 12th of November, a few days, after the event, a few weeks, we arranged a massive support event in Cape Town, on the streets of Cape Town, to stand with Israel at this time. It was actually violently disrupted. It was the first time we had violence on the streets against the Jewish people and people that stood with Israel. And I stood in the midst of all these police and all these Islamic forces. Wow. They disrupted it very violently. It was quite a line that was crossed in South Africa. But what happened after that was that we felt, even though we had so many threats, and I will tell you, it was dangerous, just advertising that event. I had to have 2 people full-time taking threats off the Facebook and off the internet because of the threats that we were experiencing. And this is in a nation that's never really had open violence or this kind of thing happen before. But we then felt to continue to have events, stand with Israel events throughout the country. And we had another one in Cape Town, in Pretoria, in Durban, and all of our main cities across South Africa, in spite of the threats, in spite of this kind of bullying tactic. And it was an amazing time to bring people together of different cultures, different races, different churches, denominations, to strongly stand with Israel. And we had such a wonderful turnout in all of our main cities. And this, for me, was also just an amazing thing that God asked us to do. And we saw his hand as he blessed it and brought the nation together to stand with Israel in spite of the intimidation around us.
Oh, that's just amazing. I think also in the life of Esther, oh, you can hear me. Yeah, in the life of Esther, there's this great triumph. And at first she's doing this feast and this other feast. And then, and she doesn't know if she's going to break the news and that she's a Jewish person and that she's, the whole story. But it finally happens and she has this great victory. And this is the part that I know people don't always read so much, is the victory for Israel, and saying, you can defend yourself. You can go defend yourself. Go and when these people, which is the spirit of Agag, which is this Amalek spirit, which is this destroy. It's the same game. It's the same, what is it called? The same plan for all across the board, whether it's a giant Goliath, whether it's, Og of Bashan, whether it's whatever it is that same plan: destroy Israel, wipe them off the map. And so she has that victory. We're able to defend ourselves, and we're talking about it even today. So my question to you is now, you've been in, how long did you say you've been in this position? And do you feel you're living in still throughout the war? You're still in that victory from October 7th?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this position now for 7 years, from 2017, but since October the 7th, it's been a very intense journey in this position. And we feel like we've been called for a time like this. And we feel like we know that God has called us. And we feel like as we exercise what we need to do, and as we're obedient, even when it looks dangerous. I mean, every now and again, people are saying to me, you're very brave to do this. And I'm going like, this is what we have been called for. If we don't do this, who else is going to stand up? And so it's such a key time. And we see the anti-Semitism arising around the world. And unfortunately, I think it's just under the surface in South Africa. And we're very aware of that. The Jewish community are very aware of that. But we realize that this is our time to live out the calling, really, to comfort them, to be a light to them. Yeah. To surround them. And so, this is our time to do that. And so we do see that in the end, we also know where the story ends. We're in the midst of a very difficult time, a very difficult war, all the trauma that goes with that. And yet we know that in the end, God will protect them, will watch over the people of Israel, and he will bring the ultimate peace that we so sorely need. I mean, we know that we are waiting for this to come.
Right. Hadassah is the name of Esther in Hebrew, which is the myrtle tree. And there's a prophecy about myrtle trees will come back. It's the angels walking through the myrtle trees. Is it Zechariah chapter 1? The angels walking through the myrtle trees, and he said, "What is this?" And he sees this prophecy where this a lamp goes from olive trees as well, and it goes and lights this menorah. And so, and I know that it's not an easy journey, the restoration of Israel, but I'm just wanted to ask you about concerning the hardship of Esther lost her parents and was raised essentially by Mordecai. Was there a hard point that kind of put you in this position in your life?
I don't think I suffered a hard point to put me in this. I think in the end, it's a laying down of yourself. It's a laying down of your plans for your life and saying, God, I will align with what that looks like, even though it might be hard and it might be challenging, but that this is the right thing, and then that's the best place to be, in the will of God. And so when you know what you need to do, you do this, even though there are challenges. And there have been times that people have said, we won't come with you in this challenge because we are too afraid, but in the end, my husband, as you say, supports me, but it's God.
Right.
You trust God to be the one that goes before you in this. We are so excited to be part of the restoration of Israel in these days, even to be playing a small role in encouraging what is happening. And just to see the prophecies come into life before our eyes. And it's such a difficult time for Israel now that they find themselves in. So we especially want to just be able to come alongside them and be a blessing however we can.
Right. So two more things that I want to say. One is more about that message that you did put out in the 7th of October, or right at the beginning there. And there's probably a lot of opposition to that. I remember the Durban conferences, and there's probably a groundwork that was pretty ready and brainwashed to be against that. So the main message of that commercial, or if you could just break that down. And the last thing is just to the other Esthers out there who will not be silent. What do you have to say to them that they would not be silent? I will not keep silent. I will remain, a watchman, a watchwoman. So those are my two questions.
Absolutely. When you've got a message that is the truth, and the head of our article was an inconvenient truth. It might not be convenient, but it's the truth. Then it is so powerful to stand up for that. The advert really went around the history of Israel. In other words, they've been there all along, just letting people understand this is who they are. This is how long they've been in the land. This isn't a land that they have taken or colonized. And then it was just around the double standards that the world in the media had been subjecting Israel to, the demonization of Israel, explaining the irony of the situation, the fact that Israel at that point had tried to set up field hospitals and Hamas wouldn't let them use them. Israel was doing everything to preserve lives, exactly like it is today, The best part of the advert was, my favorite part was the bottom of the ad, right at the bottom of the page, we wrote, the bottom line is, the people of Israel live because the God of Israel lives. And I just love that part, because this is what it's all about. This is about the name of God. It's about his kingdom, his name, his faithfulness to keep his word. And what an honor and what a privilege to be playing some part in this. I mean, who would not want to be part of this? But just an encouragement to anybody. This is and there's a beautiful scripture that I love. I think it's in Chronicles, and God says, the eyes of the Lord go to and fro, looking throughout the earth to see whose heart is set on him, who is focused on his will and his thing, so that he can show himself strong on your behalf or fight your battles for you. And so as we align ourselves as women to God's heart, where God's heart is, he backs you up. He almost opens the way for you. He almost fights for you. And
he does.
I mean, how amazing is that, to have the God of the universe kind of supporting you? Yeah.
Oh, for real. Your name, like Hadassah had like a name, which is like this myrtle trees. And your name, Vivian, really nice name. Is that Vivian? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Is that the right way? And that, obviously means alive, lively, strong spirit. Life giver also is a meaning. Life giver. What you may or may not know is the whole symbol of the throne of King Arthur. Was Vivian was the one who met him? Some lady called Vivian met him and gave him Excalibur, the sword, in that legend, and like the right to rule, God's right to rule. And in a way, almost it's so strange, but that's almost exactly what you're doing. Is saying, look, Israel has the right, and Am Yisrael Chai, and it's wrong to go against what God. It's wrong to have a cult of death when God wants life to thrive. What would you say to other Esthers here that are listening, perhaps that are maybe just before their moment, their Esther moment where they speak out? What would you say? What would you say to them concerning their message to speak out for their Esther moments?
If they take the time to hear what the heart of God is, then they can trust him. They can move out. And do they not also want to make a difference that is out of proportion to who they are? Because then we know it's God using us and we are just a channel for him. So I encourage them to hear his voice and then to take the step, even when it looks impossible, even when it looks hard. If you know that you're hearing God and you're moving forward in his truth, then you will be empowered to do what you need to do. And then you'll be fully fulfilled, because then you'll be living out your calling and your purpose.
Amen. Amen. And I just believe we will win this, just like Esther. In the time of Esther and Mordecai, Jewish people actually won the battle. They actually were given governance in over those areas. And it's just something amazing. Mordecai became the second in command to the king, Xerxes, or Ahasuerus, King Xerxes.
Yes.
That's just amazing. And so the same, there's quite a parallel. There's a reoccurring theme. Isn't that weird? Isn't it strange how it's like history repeats and how prophecy is a cycles? And, but, last thing is, how do you feel when you don't often directly see I can 100% bullet point. I'll give you an example of what I mean. The buses that blew up. I said, look, this is so clearly a miracle that the buses were empty. Not one person was hurt. Not even the driver was hurt. How amazing is that? Just recently, what happened in the terror attack in Bat Yam, and but then some other people who didn't have faith said, well, hey, maybe it was just an accident. It was just an accident. They put the wrong thing, or someone missed it, or it was all just by accident, and maybe it was an inside job, and maybe, and you start to say, oh my goodness, you don't always see God at work, but you can choose to have faith. In Esther, it's God's name is not mentioned once in the entire book of Esther, but his hand is very evident. I mean, really evident there, right? With the dreams and the item. So would you say the same thing as you may not have a direct, exact thing, but you just operated in faith and knew that all things work together for good?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that fear, that sense of peace that God leads you with, you know that you know. But I mean, to mention also Ben Gurion's words, and he wasn't necessarily a strong believer in God, but he said, to be a realist in Israel, you need to believe in miracles. And the story of Israel is a miracle from the very beginning. Through the journey, it's miracles the whole way that has preserved and kept you as a nation, and it will be a miracle that will take you to the end. Right. God said in the prophet Amos, when I bring you back and I plant you back in the land, you will never ever be uprooted again. And I say to many of the Jewish people, many of the Jewish people say to me, we live in a rough neighborhood. We don't know if we're going to be here for much longer. Anything could happen. I go like, no, your God has promised that once he plants you back in the land again, you will never be uprooted again. And so you can't, this is God's word. He's not going to change his mind. And so it doesn't matter what happens around us. We know that God is working out his purposes, and the miracles are there. If you want to see them or not, they are there on a daily basis. And I mean, we hear about that even from the guys in Gaza. We hear miracles daily. The fact that God was not mentioned in the story of Esther, he was so present, and we see his hand in so many small details. He is absolutely working out his plans and his purposes, and Israel is his nation. It's his people, and they will survive, they will thrive, but it's all about God's name. because it's a place of his inheritance. It's for his plans and his purposes. And
Right.
Israel, has been such a blessing to all of us in the nations. Everything we have comes through your nation and your faithfulness to do what you needed to do. And so God is working everything out for your good in these days as well. We know that. For your redemption, the redemption of
Amen.
Israel is on the horizon. Yeah.
I believe it. Wow. Well, thank you so much. Any last things you would like to share to the people, how to contact you, or I guess they just go to ICEJ in South Africa.
Yeah, icej.co.za is our website for South Africa. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. You're doing an amazing job. And we also work in Aliyah Return Center, charity founded a long time ago, and it's just a great. I hear the same things that I say being spoken, and it's so wonderful and encouraging to hear that, and to take courage, take heart, our hands be strong, and speak out, and not remain silent.
Amen.
Because the truth must be spoken. Well, thank you so much for your time and everything. We'd love to. We'll send this to you when it's done, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much for the
good work.
opportunity. And it was wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning into yet another episode of the Real Israel podcast with me, Chaim Mailspin, where truth shines, dispelling the darkness. And if you found value in today's episode, please like it, comment, we want to hear from you, and subscribe. Click that notification bell and share it. Join the conversation and be a truth speaker for Israel.